working. Okay, so I just want to do a quick review. So let's say I have a repetitive element in my drawing. So say this rectangle right here. In fact, I'll draw in my 0 layer so everyone can see. And let's say this object repeats throughout my drawing. So I just want to quickly review our copy command. So I type in copy, and then I select the base point. So let's say that this object repeated, so it all touched and went along the same line here. So the first thing I would do is select my object. You can select multiple objects. In this case, just one. So I'm going to hit enter here. And then it's going to ask us to select our base point. So this is where we'll be grabbing the object from. And I'm going to snap right to this point here. And then now we're ready to place where our copy is going to be placed. And I'm going to snap that to this side. So now I have two objects perfectly touching, and I can just keep on redoing that like so. So even if my cursor isn't quite on the box there, it's going to snap perfectly to shape. Now if this were, I'm going to turn off my grid pen. If I were going to try and copy this again down here, I could try and guess and say, all right, that looks pretty good right there. But as I zoom in, I'll see that those objects, in fact, are not touching. So what I'll do in that situation, say this entire box here repeats underneath it. I'm just going to select everything. I'll do copy again. And this time as my base point, instead of the bottom, I would hit the top here. And you can see I grab this whole unit here, and I'll snap it to the bottom. And I can continue that as well. So quick grid, and since I snapped correctly, as I zoom in, I can see that those are touching fine. So quick review there on copy. Now for today's assignment, we're going to start drawing things much larger than what our current grid is. This grid here is basically designed to fit on a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. And so today we're dealing with things that are going to be hundreds of feet in size. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to set my units to architectural. And then for precision, I'm just going to want it to be accurate as of inches. I don't want any fractions of an inch. So I'm going to hit this 0 feet 0 inches. That'll prevent me from doing any kind of fractions of inches. And then I just like to make a habit of whenever I adjust my units, I also go in and adjust my dim style just so I don't forget. So I'm going to set this to architectural as well. So I just do it at the same time with the same settings there. Okay. All right, so now let's say I'm drawing a rectangle here, and this rectangle is going to be 200 feet by 300 feet. So you can see part of it here. It's obviously larger than our current grid, and I start to zoom out, and I zoom out, and it won't even let me zoom out any farther because this is so big. So I can do my Z for zoom and E for extents, and now it's going to zoom out, and I can see my entire rectangle. And my grid, you can't even see my grid. It's so teeny here. I'm going to zoom in here. Yeah, look how far I have to zoom in just to see my grid. And the first problem that I noticed is as I zoomed out, you'll notice my grid just kind of disappeared. Well, eventually your grid becomes what they call too dense to display. So as I zoom out, it just no longer shows up. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make my grid bigger, and the way we do that is setting our limits to our documents. The command for that is limits. And so limits, enter, and the first thing it's asking me is to specify our lower left corner. We usually just leave that all at 0, but you could actually manually punch in something here, but we're just going to leave that at 0 for now. And then specify our right corner. You can see right now our current is set for 8 inches by 11 inches. So we're going to adjust that to be, I'm gonna go 500 feet by 500 feet. So I'm going 500 with feet, and I'm gonna do comma, and then another 500 feet. So now, if I were to zoom in up here, say, I'm not sure why my grid isn't showing up here. So the next thing you'll notice as we zoomed out, our grid disappeared because it was too dense to display. So what we want to do now is change our grid spacing. And the way we do that is to right-click on our grid display, go to Settings, and we can see here our spacings was so small, it's just rounded to 0 feet. So I'm going to set this to, say, every 5 feet is the snap portion. And then for our spacing, I'm going to do another 5 feet here. So our X and Y will both set to 5, and I'll just leave this as a major line every 5 increments. And now, if I hit OK, there we go. Now we've got our grid again. So now our grid, every little square that you see here actually represents 5 feet, and then every major square is 25 feet, 5 times 5. And then now if I go to a dimension, we're going to have yet another problem. So I dimension this, I'm expecting it to say 200 feet. Well, hey, my measurement's not there. What's up with that? Well, it ends up actually is there. You just have to, it's so teeny. I can't even find it. Let's see. There it is. So I zoom way, way, way in. There it is, 200 feet. So obviously we need to scale our dimensions, and the way we do that is we'll go back into our dim style, which a reminder, the shortcut for that is just D. And there's a quick and easy way to do this. So normally if you go into all these different settings here for our sizes and everything, it's all set back when it used to work perfectly for us. Set at 1/2 inch, but now that we're dealing with a huge amount of feet, we're going to have to dramatically scale this. So if you go to the Fit tab, so you go to our Fit tab, and we have Scale for Dimension Features. We want to do a Use Overall Scale of, and I'm going to guess we probably have to go like 300% larger. So I'm going to go 300, hit OK, hit Close, and there we go. It's probably a little small, I might go a little larger, but at least now I can see it. I will go a little larger. Oops. So again, I went to my class style, I hit modify, and why don't we go 500? So that basically took all of our regular settings and just increased them by a factor of 500, and that's what it took in order to get this large enough to fit. Now, say I want to put a center line on this object. So here's my center. I'm going to go straight down the center here. Oops. And then I'm going to make sure this is in my center layer. Where's my center layer? Here it is. So the problem here is my center line is totally solid. Well, it's supposed to be dashed. What's up with that? Well, the problem is when I zoom way, way in, there are my little dashes. The problem is they're so small we don't see them. So we need to scale our the dashes, which is the line type. So the command for that is line type scale, or LTS. So LTS, shortcut for LT scale, just meaning line type. So LTS is the command for that. And you can see here, enter our new scale factor. I'm gonna try. I'll try 200. See what happens. There we go. Got lucky. So I set my line type scale, or LTS, to 200, and now I can see my line type, which in this case is center, and all my dashes show up nicely. So as we work with different size documents, these are all settings that all need to be changed typically at the same time in conjunction for your drawings to come out correctly. And then lastly, there is one more thing I want to show you for today's assignment that'll make your lives much better. So I'm just sort of making something random here. So say this is my object, and my object repeats. So we're going to do our copy again, and I'll just say these are side by side. But then I also have this exact same object at the top. So I'm going to copy all this again and place another one up here. But they're supposed to face each other. So what I need to do is I need to take this top portion and rotate it around so they face each other. And the command for rotate is, you guessed it, rotate. And then just like our copy or scale or kind of a lot of those commands, we need to first specify a base point. And this is the point at which it is basically going to pivot from. So I'm just going to select this kind of random midpoint here. So I'll click that, and then you'll notice as I move my mouse around, I can now rotate. But in typical CAD fashion, we never really want to use our mouse. Instead, we want to actually specify our rotation angle to make sure that it's snapped perfectly. So I'm going to flip this 180 degrees, hit enter, and now we have that perfectly rotated 180 degrees. That is the rotate command. So any questions on resizing our grid, which is our limits command, adjusting our grid spacing, which allows us to view our grid once we've zoomed out, adjusting our dim style settings so we can see the all of our arrows and dimensions, and adjusting our line type scale, or LTS, to allow that to be viewed with a different scale as well. Okay, excellent. Good luck.